And this is how it usually starts, in a dark space. And then we turn a light on, and interesting things start to happen. Hi, this is Mark Thayer. Thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode in my new YouTube channel, Studio Lighting for Still Life and Product. Now, I've been doing this for quite some time, and I have a whole lot I would love to share with you. This will be predominantly about studio lighting, so indoors, mostly indoors. But I have to say that a lot of what I create in the studio comes from inspiration I get from outdoors. Whether it's walking on the beach or hiking in the woods or floating down the river in a canoe, I pay very close attention to the light. And sometimes you see something that's so remarkable, so sublime, so subtle that it gives you kind of an ache. And I take that ache and I hold on to it. And when I come back into the studio, I pull it out and I use it. I use the inspiration and the energy that I got out there and create something new in here. Now, I don't necessarily try to replicate what I saw out there, although that would be amazing. But more often than not, it's just about using that inspiration to create something brand new in here. So with that in mind, I have a set behind me, behind that curtain, and it is a beach scene. Now, there's no sand or waves. It's just we're using it as a way to explore the light there. So it's midday, midsummer, very hot, hazy and humid, very hazy, soupy hazy. And we're going to go from midday to the end of the day, but not just in terms of time of day, but also in terms of time of season. So we're going to be starting midday, midsummer at the beach, and we're going to travel to sunset, late fall, in the mountains, where the air is crisp and clean and clear. We're going to do all of that right back there. I know, but we are. And we're going to get started right now. Hi, welcome to the beach. This is our beach set. Now remember, it's midsummer, midday, very hot and hazy and humid. Very hazy. For props today, we're using wood clamps. I know, not a lot to do with the beach, but they serve our purposes well for this exercise. They have lots of planes, surfaces, shapes. They're very graphic. They have lots of textures. There's some shiny bits. And all of these things add up to helping us really see the differences between the different lighting situations we're setting up. I'm going to put this back in the set, and we'll talk about the way it's lit. Up top, large diffusion panel, 6 feet by 6 feet. Above that is our light source. The modifier on that source is a beauty dish. Nice soft interior, has a disc in front which prevents the flash from coming straight out the front. It has to bounce off the inside of the dish first before coming out, which softens it a lot. That in turn hits this large diffusion panel, which spreads the light out even more, a lot more, and makes it that much softer. Inside the set, we have white cards left and right. We have a white seamless hanging in the back, and we'll slide a card underneath for good measure. We'll bring this back down. Now, all those white surfaces bounce that light all back in, just like as if we had haze to the horizon at our beach. So let's take a shot and see what it looks like. So as you can see, it's very soft. The light is very soft, and it's wrapping around everything. There are no distinct shadows. There are no strong highlights. There are no true blacks anywhere. The colors are all kind of muted. Kind of what you'd expect at a hazy day on the beach. Okay, let's move on to our next scene. The sun is getting a little lower in the sky and traveling around to the west, and the haze is starting to burn off a little bit. So much so that you can now look up and actually see what looks like a sun up there. It's not just a big white sheet covering the beach anymore. Objects in our scene will start to take on more shape. They'll get what looks like the beginnings of a highlight and a shadow, and that will all be achieved by changing our diffusion material and our reflector cards. I'm not going to make you watch me do that, so we're going to cut away for a second. I'll switch out the scene, and we'll come right back and do another shot. Welcome back to the beach. As you can see, we've changed some things. To begin with, change the diffusion material on the top to a much lighter material. That allows more light to penetrate through to the set, and it doesn't spread out quite so much. If we were inside the set looking up, we would see a hot spot where the light source is now. In addition to that, I've changed the fill cards. I removed the one in the front altogether. On the left side, I've moved this fill card back about 1.5 feet. On the right side, I've moved that card back a little bit as well and swapped the white card out for a gray card. The gray card will reflect much less light back into the set than the white card did. And lastly, I've moved the seamless in the background further away, which means it will also bounce less light back in and go a little bit darker. So let's bring this diffusion back down and try a shot. Big difference, right? Right away you see that the objects on the set have much more shape to them. The surfaces that face the light directly are much brighter, very different than the surfaces that do not face the light directly. Additionally, the shadows are darker and more defined. They're not black yet. If you were to drag an eyedropper through that region, you would see that there's still plenty of tone and detail left in there, but they're definitely darker. Okay, now we're going to move into a little later in the day and a little later in the season, make some more changes to the set. Once again, I won't ask you to watch me do that. I'll come right back. And we're back. And as you can see, we've made some very big changes to the set this time. The diffusion material that we had above is completely gone. And the beauty dish is now doing its job all by itself. As far as reflector cards go, the one on my left, the gray card, has been moved further away and therefore is doing less work. It's not bouncing as much light back into the set as it was before. On my right side, that white fill card, it's gone. We took it away completely. As for the seamless in the background, that's still there, but we've moved it away and it's still white, but we've added this black card above here. And what that's doing is it's preventing the light from our beauty dish from getting back onto the white seamless. Not entirely, but a lot of it has been cut away. And one more thing I want to point out of frame above our set, we have a scrim hanging from the studio ceiling. So far in every shot, light from our source has been bouncing up onto that scrim and then reflecting back down, which has added to our fill. It's still there, and it's still doing some of that work, but in our next scene, I'm going to cover that with black so that our fill from the top will be completely gone. Let's do another shot. Really big difference this time. As you can see, everything has more shape, more contrast. The shadows are longer and deeper and more defined. Still not black yet. I did take an eyedropper and walk around in there a little bit, and there's still tone in all of those dark spots. We're not black yet, but we will get there. And here we are at our next set. The sun has gotten even lower in the sky and has moved around to the west. Not all the way there yet, but it's getting pretty close. What we've done as far as lighting goes, we've taken our beauty dish and retired it for the evening, and we put a magnum reflector on there. This is a magnum. Very shiny on the inside, smaller in diameter, provides a more focused beam of light, much contrastier source. I consider this to be a hard source, whereas the beauty dish was a soft source. It's focusable in that you can slide it in and out on the strobe head to get a different beam. It is adjustable, it's not precise, but it can be adjusted. Now on top of that, we have a product called Tough Spun, diffusion material made by Roscoe. I love this stuff because it provides diffusion but also still allows for sparkly highlights. It's great stuff. Other changes to the set. Gray card on that side, not so much. It's about the same as it was before, still providing some fill. It's getting a different amount of light striking it, so it's going to be doing a slightly different thing. I left it alone. We still have a black card over here that is keeping the light from our magnum reflector getting to the seamless in the background. I've also added an overhead black card, which is effectively making our overhead scrim, which I talked about earlier, from doing anything at all because I'm not allowing any light to get up there to bounce off of that. The light is raking across the set to a greater degree. And let's take a shot, see what that looks like. Wow, right? That's what we get. It's really looking good now. Getting very exciting. As you can see, the shadows are much longer right out of the frame. Darker, more defined. Again, all of those things, all that progression we've been seeing from shot to shot is taking it to another level. Now, between this scene and the next scene, we're going to have a thunderstorm. It's going to roll on through. And after it's done, it's going to leave behind black overhead clouds, big dark storm clouds. And I'm sure you've all seen this, but after a storm, you get those dark clouds and the sun is setting, it's all dark. And then the sun sneaks into that spot between the horizon and the bottom of the cloud layer and just comes blazing through and just ignites the scene. That's what we're going for. Okay, here we are at our final scene. Our sun has now moved all the way around to the west and is sitting right on the horizon. As far as lighting goes, we've taken the tough spun diffusion off of the magnum and we've added a grid spot. What this does is confines the light to a narrower beam. This is a 10-degree grid and significantly narrows that beam. As for other things in our set, reflectors and such, we've taken the gray reflector on that side completely away. In fact, I've added a black scrim on that side to make sure that a studio wall or some piece of equipment on that side of the set doesn't bounce any light back in. I don't want any fill. The seamless is gone, and behind it is hanging a black velvet drape, so nothing's coming back off of that. I still have made sure that none of the light escapes to this white scrim above. There is really just one source doing all the work. So let's take a shot, take a look, see what we got. Wow, right? Last rays of sunset. That's about as contrasty as we're going to get this shot without blowing out some highlights or losing the color and the beautiful honey color in the wood. Now, I cheated a little bit, and while you weren't looking, I added an orange gel, a CTO, which is color temperature orange from the film industry terminology. And I just added an orange gel to the light because that's what happens to the light at sunset, right? It gets orangey red, and I wanted to really go for it. The shadows are long and deep now. I dragged my eyedropper around. We have single digits at best back there. So actually, I kind of lied a little bit because I said this was our last scene. I have one more thing I want to do, just one little tweak. So bear with me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with the bonus round. Thank you for sticking around. I've done two things. I've added 2 black cards to this side of the set. Tough to see because they're on edge to the camera, but what they've done is they've further restricted the light coming between from our source to our set. About 1.5 inches is all that manages to get through now. I added another full stop of CTO to that light to make it even orangier and redder and warmer. Why? Because I can. We're in the studio. We can do whatever we want. I could add a second sun to that side of the set if I wanted to, because we can. Let's do a quick shot of this. And there you have it. Maybe over the top, maybe not. But let's take a minute and cycle through all the scenes that we did today, from the hot, hazy, humid beach day to this. I'll stop talking for a moment and let you just look at these. And this concludes my very first episode of studio lighting for still life and product. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means a lot to me. If you liked it, please do subscribe, leave a comment, ask a question. I will get back to you. We have more episodes coming up, and I think the next one is about reflector cards. I know, doesn't sound all that interesting, but we really only scratched the surface today. They are very powerful tools in the studio, and we'll go through those next time. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Mark Thayer. Be well.